Welcome to the Flora Sage Podcast, a place where we help you create a life you're excited about. Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. And oh my gosh, you guys, I have a super huge treat for you all. Today, we are having a conversation with one of my oldest and dearest friends, not old in age, but longest friends that I've been associated with. We've been friends actually since before kindergarten. Way back in the day, not too far back, but in any case, her name is Shawnah Marie. She is a multifaceted, multi-talented person, an entrepreneur, and very, very dear friend of mine. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Shawnah.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you. This is going to be fun.
Yay. So you have a lot of talents. You have a lot of skills. You have so much that you offer this planet just by being on it. But what you've acquired over the years is just absolutely awe-inspiring. So why don't you share off the cuff, something about you that our listeners might find interesting?
Something about me that when I introduce myself, I always say I have a master's in real life mental health, which means mental health is brain health.
Yeah.
So I think that would be interesting.
I love that. Well, growing up where we did, we grew up in a village. It wasn't even big enough to be called a town or a city. It was a village, very small. And growing up in a village, everybody knows everything. And that's challenging. It's really challenging.
Yes, it is. Very challenging.
Yeah. And then I know that your mom actually worked for the airline. So you got a lot of exposure to other cultures, other areas in life, whereas I did not. Like our version of a vacation was going up to the cabin 3 hours away. But as we both aged, as we both traveled more, experienced more, that's when that kind of small town connection really started to matter, and that cohesiveness really started to matter. But also the experience that you got, I think, when you traveled so much, that really helped you in obtaining your master's in real life, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, just experiencing different places, different people, like you said, cultures, just, how people would fit in together.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I don't even know how to explain it, but just watching and observing people in different places.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, as we go through life, sometimes we don't know what we don't know,
Correct. Oh, yes. We have no idea what we don't know till we're in that situation.
Exactly. Right. And it's interesting because both you and I took very different paths. I went into the service. You went into massage therapy. You went into speaking and networking and connecting people. But you also are an advocate. And I love that you brought up the mental health thing, because mental health is something that's so important that back in the day was really taboo. Like you didn't talk about going to a psychiatrist or a therapist. And if you did, you were labeled as like psycho or crazy or cuckoo, or you should,
right.
Mental plate. Yeah. And because I know I've struggled with mental health issues. And I want us to kind of dig a little bit deeper into this, because I think that a lot of the times when we go through life in a very small, secluded village, and I mean, literally there was like 65 people in our graduating class or something like that.
Yeah, it was 63 or 65, but super small. So you knew everybody and they knew every little thing, or thought they knew everything about you. And there wasn't social media back then.
Exactly. Thank God.
Right?
Thank God. Oh my goodness. Yes. But I mean, that really wreaks havoc on your mental health, because almost nothing is private. Like everybody knows everything,
Right. Or they assume they know everything because they think they know what's really going on, but yet they don't. So they make their perception in their head. And that's the true story of what's really going on in life.
Exactly. And those things stick with us. Well, like those things that happen to us and for us as children stick with us and really impact and influence how we navigate the world as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yes.
in our business, in our business time, in our relationships of all kinds, whether they're platonic or intimate or business. I mean, it's crazy how much it impacts us.
Yes. As you're saying that, even just different things are coming up right now. You don't realize that until you're having this conversation.
Exactly.
So, right. In a little village.
Exactly. So share with us a little bit about your experience in business, in mindset, and in the whole mental health realm. And maybe that's kind of too big of a can of worms to open up.
Yeah.
But essentially, okay, so hang on. I'm going to narrow that question down a little bit.
Okay.
So, you being still in the general vicinity of where we grew up and where we were basically raised, you work in a, like neighboring town, you live in the town that we grew up in. Share with us what it's like as an entrepreneur that has also dealt with some pretty public challenges in regards to mental health and the people that you've been in association with. Let me know if that makes sense.
Okay. And that's still broad, but that's okay. So, even as little as how you introduced me, I don't think I've used my last name in the last 2 years when I'm out in business, or networking. I always say I'm Shawnah Marie with Stillwater's Healing and Wellness. Your unicorn massage therapist says my hands are magical. Yeah. So it's really, so when somebody new is meeting me, they meet me with an open perception that I'm Shawnah Marie.
Right.
And not that I don't love my parents or anything like that, or the village we grew up in. It's the minute that if there's somebody in the crowd and I say I'm Shawnah Bro with Stillwater's Healing, and they've heard one thing about the Bro family and the town we grew up in, right away that closes down the conversation.
Right.
And, I'm proud of who I am, but there's also, it closes down walls because the perception of what people think with your family name or the association with the name from years ago, all of a sudden they stop and they don't want to have a conversation with you.
Right.
But as far as you say with like the mental health piece, when I say I have a master's in real life mental health, I'm open to, and I've talked about, I'm a warrior of domestic violence. That has brought me on the other side as being a suicide loss survivor. I have 3 boys. My middle son, we lost his dad to suicide back in 2014. And I'm sharing that because, when a child is going in a small village and somebody maybe that doesn't know him says, is your dad coming to the hockey game? And he doesn't want to answer. But the minute he said, then they start asking and somebody says, well, he died, I don't like the C word, but when somebody says he committed suicide, I teach mental health first aid classes now. And I say, no, somebody lost their life to suicide because nobody commits to have cancer or a heart attack.
Right.
So nobody actually commits to want to die. Their brain is sick and that's how they end their life, or that's how they lose their life. So, but being in a small village, the perception of that comes. So when I do say, that I'm Shawnah Bro, if they recognize or associate me with, she was with this person, he died by suicide. So you get that stigma stuck there because people don't understand and they're scared of what that is. And then they might not want to talk to you, or they might not know what to say to you. So it's been a very big challenge. So now, I teach mental health first aid classes and I stand up and say, you know what, I lost somebody near and dear to me by suicide, as his battle with mental health was overwhelming. And he just couldn't find his way out of that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think having those conversations and asking people, do you have a brain?
Right.
And they're like, well, yeah, I have a brain. And I'm like, all right, what do you do to keep your brain healthy?
Exactly.
So you shouldn't be ashamed and you shouldn't be shamed because your brain might not be healthy today.
Right.
And you're struggling with something going on in life. I don't know if that fully answered what you were asking or
absolutely.
not.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I love that you answered it the way that you did, because growing up in a small town / village and learning the things that we did, hearing the things that we did, and just being in such a small community, that can wreak havoc on your mental health, and it can impact how you navigate life. And, just like you said, when you say your name, people make assumptions. Like, I know as a kid, I would hear people refer to the quote unquote, the bros, as the rich family in town. And, oh, well, rich people are snobby, rich people are selfish, rich people are greedy. And I'm like, because you are the opposite of all that. Like, you are not selfish.
Thank you.
I was like, what? And so it was so confusing for me as a kid to hear these things and go like, wait, what am I missing? Because you were none of those things. And your parents, although your dad is a little bit brash, but he's awesome. Like, he has his own sense of humor. Your mom is so compassionate. She's so caring. And it's like, there's all these stigmas that people hear or just assume when they hear a label or a last name, and then staying in that community. Yeah. And then staying in that community and having everybody, as you said, assume that they know what's going on, and assume that, like, when somebody retires, are they actually retiring? Or like, what's why are they really closing the business? Why are they really doing this? And it's just like, oh geez, really, people? And then especially when something like this happens with domestic violence and having someone pass away to suicide, it's like, that just puts all that much more stuff into the mix. And a lot of that is taboo. Like, a lot of people don't want to talk about money with people. A lot of people don't want to talk about domestic violence. A lot of people don't want to talk about suicide because, one, they're probably scared of like, oh shit, like, I don't want to go in that energy because I don't want that to happen to me or my family members or my friends. So they just try to avoid it altogether. And you are such a mixed bag of worms that I love it. I'm like, yes, let's do this. Let's dig into this and explore it, because it's, when something is taboo, when something is, an assumption, we're hurting not just the whole community, but ourselves, especially by not learning about it and understanding and educating ourselves about it. And I love that you have experienced these things to the point enough. Well, okay, first of all, I hate that you've experienced these things, but I love that you allowed yourself to use it as a catalyst for growth in the community. So people are becoming educated and going, oh, okay, wow. And like, okay, perfect example. You said, I don't like to use the C word. Nobody commits to, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so true. And I remember hearing you say, this was probably years ago. You mentioned something about another word about suicide. It was not commit suicide, but it was something suicide. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And it was so incredible, because that totally changed the way that I viewed someone that succumbs to suicide. And it was just like, oh my gosh, because I know for me, I've avoided the whole, situation and topic for years until we started talking about it, and it made me really uncomfortable, but I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to go there with you. I'm going to talk about it. And the more that I learned about it, the less taboo and the less fear I felt about it. And the more
and I think that's the thing that people don't realize. The more you talk about your experiences, and I think my turning point on that was, and I know some people now either love her or hate her, or they have their own perception of her, but I go back to the book, Girl, Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. If you're okay with that. I don't know if you've ever listened, but she has a chapter in there, Is the Lie I'll Never Get Past This. I think it's, and I might not be quoting that right, but I remember, that my middle son that lost his dad to suicide, we did a lot of hockey, a lot of trips, a lot of time in the car. and you can only listen to the radio so much.
Yeah.
You can only have so many dance parties in the car. So I started using that as my time to learn, to grow. We all have these experiences and we get to choose whether we get to move through them and work with them and find the meaning and the lessons of those painful parts of our story, or, it'll consume us and it will swallow up and it just cripple us mentally. Right. So somebody told me to listen to her book and I got to that chapter and she talks about, how you find those pieces to actually, spend the time to think about the situation that hard and to process that. So you're not thinking about it all day long, but then actually like how you can talk about your experience to help somebody else that's struggling. And I think that was one of the pieces where I'm like, all right, I don't even think were we a year past his dad passing? I think we were a year past, and we went and did a public service announcement and did a video for the St. Croix County Drug and Mental Health Task Force. And we did this video. And I don't know if you've seen it before, but I had no idea what to expect. So I have this 13-year-old kid, 12-year-old, whatever he was at this time, and boys, nothing wrong with boys, but their brains work totally different than us women, and we go in and, doing a video, you do take upon take upon take upon take. And, we're at the funeral home where his dad was. There's a casket sitting where his dad was. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I traumatized my own child. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, this is awful. But when we got done, and right as they're going to start shooting it, they gave him the last 8x10 picture of him sitting with his dad at baseball after the game in his uniform. And they're both smiling because they're so excited. He just had this phenomenal pitching game. Right. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And now it's going to a whole nother level of what did you do to your child? But we got done and got in the car and he was so upset. And he's like, why did you make me do that? And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, all I can tell you is we can never bring your dad back. Right. But sharing in the real raw emotions on your face and mine as I'm sitting behind you, like thinking, what did I do to this child? And you can see the pain on my face and the pain on your face. Yeah. That has the power to save the next person, to say, I need help. I'm struggling. And that's the part that's clicked for me. Find that. And, I contribute that back to you too. You're always like, nope, sit in your shit. Sit in that shit, sit in that emotion, and you figure it out. Yeah. Because, if you don't lean into it and you go and you pour that glass of wine so you forget about it, or you go out and get a tattoo so that pain numbs it, or whatever your thing is, you're never going to work through it. It's always going to be part of you, but it's working through it when that emotion gets hard.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know that growing up, like my mom was always like, put on a happy face and just, ignore whatever. And
so was mine.
Yes. And it was so hard to learn to lean into emotion and to lean into those things that were unpleasant, because we were always taught to numb it out and to ignore it and pretend it wasn't there. And that fucks with you mentally. Like,
oh my gosh, you carry that around and then it just goes to the next. I think you've talked about it before. It goes into your next relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, it's a friendship, it's your mother-son. And I say mother-son because I have 3 boys, it's that relationship, or it's your, my nieces are the girls I never had. My 2 oldest nieces, I love them to death. And not saying that I don't just adore my niece Tori as well. But I mean, my older nieces were with me a lot as younger children, but you carry that into the relationships with them. And my daughter-in-law now, you carried into that. So if you don't sit in your own stuff and work through it, you're going to carry that in no matter what you're doing. So and so many people are taught to stuff it.
Exactly. And I think that that's one of the things, because so I had postpartum depression with my first son, and I started to get suicidal ideation, and I didn't know what that was, but all of a sudden, like I would be driving and all of a sudden I would see this vision in my head where my car just careened off the road. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, it scared the shit out of me. And I was like, and so I was afraid to bring it up to anybody because I didn't want to be labeled psycho or whatever the label.
Right.
But I was like, oh my God, because of how we grew up in that small village, that if anybody knew, God forbid, anything was wrong, you were going to be labeled this for life, you know, and that fucks with you mentally. But then as I moved away from where I grew up, and as I, you know, started talking with people, and as I started reading self-help books and kind of getting more into that healthy space of communication, I realized, wait a minute, other people have these thoughts too. Like, I knew that I didn't want to do it, but the fact that vision even came into my head scared the shit out of me. And I was like, oh my God, like, what the hell? So the first time I brought it up to my therapist, I was scared shitless. I literally was like, please don't lock me up. Please don't lock me up. And she's like, oh, everybody has that. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah. Right. Yeah. She said, everybody at some point in their life will have that. And she says, typically that's caused by stress in your life. So let's look at the stress in your life. And that was so relieving. I was like, oh, wow. So that's just an indicator. That's like the lights on my car, like that, you know, like dashboard light. That's just an indicator that I need to look at something in my life. What are the stressors in my life? And I realized, I'm like, well, yeah, I've got this stressor and that one and that one. She's like, awesome. So let's look at these and let's learn how to diffuse these stressors. All of a sudden, instantly, I was given some tools and I was like, holy shit, this actually works. And the thing is so often we feel like we don't want to talk about what's stressing us out or what's going on. We keep it bottled up for fear of labels or stigma or whatever. And what happens is that we get tired of holding all that in, and we get tired of trying to navigate it on our own and get tired of putting up this facade. And I think that that's one of the reasons why some people succumb to suicide, because they're trying to do it all on their own. And you know,
well, and I think you even told me, I think you said it's 90 seconds to get over that emotion when I was trying to help my son with some of that stuff. Yeah. So 90 seconds. And I remember going through, you know, and I think we talked about that pretty early on, you know, probably in 2015. Yeah. So it was well, this January, 4 years ago, I went through mental health first aid training to become an instructor. And they talked about that 90-second window. Yeah. But if nobody's experienced any type of therapies or any type of help, to know that that's a normal thing, like you said, to have that suicidal ideations when you're in that state of being stressed. If nobody's talked to you about the tools to use, and you don't know what tool to use within the 90 seconds, that's where, you know, because it's the impulsivity. A lot of people don't realize, I'm going to attempt this and the end result will be death.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, they don't get that, the cause and the effect, where where the brain's going without the right chemicals being released because your brain's sick.
Exactly. Well, and it's almost like you're driving your car and all of a sudden a light comes on and you think, oh, my car is exploding right now. Or, I mean, literally, you know, because I've had suicidal, you know, like those thoughts. Well, I'm laying in bed going, I wonder what it would be like if I wasn't here. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Like, why is that even coming in? And I'm like, wait a minute, what stress am I under? What's going on? And when you recognize that literally is just that dashboard light coming on, and then you literally, because like before I would have that ideation and freak out, and that it would cause me panic and anxiety attacks for weeks, sometimes months, like literally nonstop. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Yada, yada. And then the second that I mentioned it, like I said, and she said, oh, everybody has that. It's just an indicator that you've got some stressors going on. Literally, anytime any of that pops in, I'm like, oh, dashboard light, what stressors, what stressor? Is it, did I not sleep well? Did I not eat? Do I have financial things going on that I need to address? Like, you know, whatever. Do I have physical or health things? Anything, but allowing myself to just recognize that that's an indicator, all of a sudden opens up everything, opens up everything. And it makes that 90 seconds doable. It makes that 90 seconds to where all of a sudden it's not so bad. So, okay. So for those of you listening who don't know what this 90 seconds is, let's just say that you're sitting down, whatever, and then all of a sudden you get a text message from somebody and you all of a sudden start to feel these massive emotions and you're just like, oh my God, maybe they just broke up with you. Maybe you just found out that your grandmother passed away. So all of a sudden, yes, you're going to be in grief or anger or sadness or all the things. Allow yourself to feel it instead of trying to wish it away or, trying to avoid it by doing something else. Let's just say, 3 months goes by and, someone has passed away and you're sitting here and all of a sudden, maybe you smell something that reminds you of that person. And all of a sudden you start to feel this huge wave of emotions starting to come. Again, most people will try to, and that's very generalized, I apologize, but, let's just, for example purposes, most people will just try to, maybe numb out by pouring a glass of wine or eating some ice cream or getting up and, numbing out on Netflix or something. But if you allow yourself to say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this ebb of sadness come, well, what would happen if you just allowed it to come and just fully feel the enormity of it? And what happens, you actually time, like scientists have actually timed this, that if you allow the emotion to just come and then rise like a wave, all of a sudden it's going to peak and then it's going to ebb again. So it's going to rise, and then all of a sudden now it's going to ebb. And that wave, it's literally a 90-second wave that will come, wash over you, and then it subsides. And what happens if you allow yourself to feel that emotion? Just feel it for what it is. Don't label it as bad or good or whatever. Just allow yourself to feel that emotion. Then on the other side of the emotion, then you can say, okay, what was that about? And when I learned that these emotions of any kind, joy, sadness, fear, suicidal ideation, all these things, again, they're all indicators of what's going on in our life. If you feel like overwhelming joy where you're just crying and like, oh my God, you're like, awesome. What causes, like, how can I get more of this? When you've got this sadness, okay, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me? And allowing yourself to really let emotions guide your life and allow you to, recognize that most people run from pain and run towards pleasure. Well, life is about contrast. It's about the night and the day. It's about the good, the bad. It's about, what we perceive as pleasurable and what we perceive as painful. And what's painful for one person is pleasurable for somebody else. But allowing yourself to really recognize that there is that ebb and flow of emotion all the time. And most of the time we're in a pretty neutral space. And most people have their kind of base resonance, if you will, where somebody is pretty much always kind of happy or somebody's pretty much always kind of pissy and they complain all the time. Like people have their base mode, you know what I mean?
Yep, I totally.
Yeah, but throughout the day, and I challenge all of you to observe yourself over the next couple of days. Pay attention to what your regular base resonance is of a frequency. Like, are you pretty high vibe? Are you pretty, happy all the time? Are you pretty, miserable or depressed or whatever? Again, this is an indicator of your life. This is an indicator of what's going on. And you can allow yourself to recognize what's coming when it comes and say, okay, this is just an indicator of what's going on. Let me do that little 1 degree shift to, well, first of all, feel the emotion that comes up outside or above or below your base level. And then say, okay, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me? Like, I'll give you an example. There was this one time I was standing in my kitchen when I was living in New Richmond, Wisconsin, and it was a bright, sunny summer day. And I was standing by my island and I looked outside and it was just gorgeous. And I just felt this huge, I just was so happy. And I was like, I literally said out loud, why the fuck am I so happy? And my kids were like, did you just ask yourself why you're so happy? I'm like, yes, because I want more of it. Like, what am I doing? And so often when we think about mental health, we think about all the shit show stuff, like all the suicidal ideation and the anxiety and the panic and the depression. But rarely do we talk about how can we get more of those good things. And part of that is just recognizing I have tools and I have friends that can help me. And if you don't have a friend that can help you, hire one, really, or something. But it's like, there's so many resources to people. And a lot of the times people just don't have the resources, or they don't know what they can do in order to feel better. And this podcast is one of your resources. I'm hoping that you're loving this episode so far. But so Shawnah, share with us some of your discoveries when you started to learn the tools that you have about mental health and about, well, just everything, because like you do massage therapy. So you work with people every day on releasing and clearing energy in the physical body. And then kind of on top of that, then you learned, mental health stuff and all this stuff. So share with us some of those tools that you discovered and were kind of surprised about, like how well they actually work.
Right. So like when I went through, mental health first aid training, the acronym they use is LG. And I always say E number 2. So it's assessing somebody for risk of suicide or harm. It's listening non-judgmentally, giving reassurance, encouraging professional care, and then encouraging self-help and other support strategies. So really, while I was going through this class with 30 people in St. Croix County, because it was something that they had put together, I think it was called the Healthier Together Initiative. But I was like in a room of 30 people, I was the only one that didn't have a college degree. I have, like I said, so when we introduced ourselves, I was like, I've got a certificate in massage therapy and I've got a master's in real life mental health. And they all kind of chuckled and looked at me. But, the self-help and self-care or self-help and other support strategies is really where I learned, and I could really get into the tools of that. So, it was your book, The 1 Degree Shift. It was sitting down and actually doing some coaching and talking with you. I did actually Midwest Psychological Services, and I don't know if that's still the name of it, Dr. Bradley Nevins. I just say he was the biggest catalyst at the beginning of my journey back in 2004, 5, 6. I don't know which year it was, but he diagnosed me at that time with severe post-traumatic stress disorder. And, like you say, I was just like, oh my gosh, and I felt like I was sometime on the hamster wheel, and I was like, there's gotta be something different. So that's when I really started in. I'm like, okay, massage. I give massages. I can go get a massage. Right. What else can I do? I can go for a walk. And my dear friend, I think it was Rob O'Connick, was like, let's go for a walk out to the Willow River State Park. And he's like, I just want you to stop, touch the moss. Like, let's stop and look at the leaves. Let's look at how they're moving. What do you see? What do you, and actually, as we were on this walk, and I think it was almost 7 miles because we went through the whole park.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if you're trying to see if like my stamina could keep going or, but he's like, no, I really want you to just take this all in as we're going. Look at the leaves, look at the moss, what else do you see? The grass, feel it, touch it, and I was just like, wow. So just being out in nature and stopping long enough to appreciate, like, what does the moss feel like? Are the leaves still green? So that for me is a big thing. Like that's a big tool. So I tell people if they love nature, just getting outside, taking your shoes and socks off, which we're going to get out of that season, which I'm really bummed about, but actually getting out and just putting your feet in the grass, feeling that, being grounded back to the earth. Now that it's getting cold out, somebody just shared this with me a couple years ago. They're like, you know what? Get a pot of just soil, dig in that pot, like you're gardening. And you're one with the dirt again. You're one with the ground. You're one with, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And wow. If you love gardening, you're going to understand why you love gardening, because that grounds you back to nature. Have plants in your house. Yes. Maybe it's literally just setting a 30-minute timer, going back in your room, sitting on your bed in a meditation state with your palms up and just breathing and like just being conscious of your breath. My newest thing that I've added in the last, 6 months is going to Hot Works. For me, you guys, working out working out, whether it's literally walking up and down your stairs for 10 minutes, going out to the mailbox or whatever, but just working out. But for me, you guys, the Hot Works model, oh my gosh, that is just amazing. I'm in an infrared sauna. I'm spending 15 minutes in cardio, whether it's a spin bike or it's the rower I can only do when I don't do massage because it's too much for me to come and give clients massages after the rowing machine. Or it's a half an hour with isometric classes or yoga or Pilates, but it's just actually being in there. And I love when I'm in there with my workout buddies. But if I'm having that day and I'm having that thought, like you said, that thought of, I don't want to be here. It's that I don't want to be in the situation. Not that I don't want to be on earth. Exactly. I just don't want to be where I am right now. Yes. And that might be because life is just overwhelming. I'm like, you know what? I'm popping into a session and I'm going to sit there and I have 30 minutes in the warmth of the infrared sauna. I'm getting all the benefits of the sauna. And if you don't know where they are, look them up, people. I'm telling you, go to Hot Works, go to infrared sauna benefits, look them all up. But then I'm actually taking the time to be intentional and stretching and moving my body. It's not exercise, it's moving your body. That lights me up. Nothing more. I wish I lived next to a beach because that's my jam. I know you love the desert and I'm okay about, being in the desert too, but I like colorful as well. But, it's just finding all those tools. I would have never went on a walk by myself and actually just stopped long enough to look at the leaves and realize that was a tool that could help me. Right. Yeah. Or that touching the moss and just feeling that it's kind of like a cool, soft carpet. Yeah. Like I would have never realized that took me out of whatever noise was going on in my head.
Yes. Yes.
So, you know what I mean? So in that moment, I give 2-hour massages. So I'll share a little secret. Like I, on really low, will play music or I will listen to a book or a podcast. I've listened to your podcast, just have it on really low. I only have one in, so I'm really focusing on my massage, but that way I'm not stuck in my own head on what might have happened before I got to work. Right. Or what situation of life would have happened in the last week. Right. Yeah. So you're not stuck because being in your own head sometimes can be a scary space.
Yes.
And it's what can pull you out. Is there a song?
Yeah.
Is there a quote? Is there a picture? Like you said, that moment there you were like, I don't even know why I'm happy like this. What is it? Find that picture.
Yeah.
That picture where you have so much joy, put that as your screensaver, you guys. Put that as your screensaver or that quote that lights you up so that when you have that moment, you can look at it and look at it and repeat it.
Yes.
Oh instead of an oil change sticker, I mean, not that I don't have that. It's just in a different spot. Oil change people look at me and go, wait, that's not. And I'm like, yeah, no, the sticker up that says, I am freaking amazing.
Hell yeah.
Because you know what? I'm in my car and you can have that moment. Somebody flies in front of you and I'm like, nope, I am freaking amazing and it's okay.
Yep. I love it. One of the things that I heard you say just now is it's not that I don't like my life. It's just, I don't like my situation right now. I love that. I love that. I love that so much because sometimes it seems like it's our whole life. It seems like it's the entirety of everything. And I actually worked with this coach one time. I can't remember what his name was. It was just with one session, but he said, does all of you feel this way or does just part of you feel this way? And I actually did a podcast about this. Yeah. And so he had me word it, a part of me feels anxious or a part of me feels depressed. Okay. What are the other parts of me feel? And I'm like, I have goosebumps right now as I'm sharing this. And I love that because when you said, is it my whole life or is just the situation? No, it's just this right here. Something is off.
Right.
And because it feels off, I am getting this suicidal ideation thought that's swirling in, but that's just because part of me feels this way. But what did the other parts of me feel? And I love that when you said, okay, part of me feels this way, but I know that another bigger part of me knows that in order to help heal this other part that feels wonky, I can go feel the grass with my feet, or dig in the dirt, or go to Hot Works and move my body and remember how good it feels to move my vessel and to get back to my space. Oh, I love this, Shawnah. So good. So
awesome.
Good. So good.
The other thing that I just in the last 2 years have, well, 2.5 years have really incorporated in is my dog.
Mm-hmm.
So, my baby girl, I have boys. So my baby girl, we had an accident with her running after a car. And so she's no longer with us, and I rescued another dog. But I'll tell you what, you guys, this support from an animal, like the unconditional love, like I'm telling you what, they always laugh and say, you could forget to, feed your child and they'd be mad at you because they're hungry, but you forget to feed the dog and he's still excited to see you.
Right.
Right. And that's a true statement, you guys. I mean, and I know that animals aren't everybody's thing, but find that one thing, right? Find that one thing that works for you, whether it's diffusing essential oils, it's having that friend you can call. I just spoke on self-care for your well-being, and I went around the room, and it was a mom's group, and I just said, okay, I'm going to say self-care. What does that mean to you? I mean, just shout it out. No, don't overthink it. Just come on. And one lady said, you know what, getting in my car with my warm cup of coffee and putting my hands on that cup. And I'm like, yes. For those of you that know me, and there's always a coffee mug with a saying on it, that mug is about the saying on it that I need to hear, but it's the warmth of the coffee mug when I'm in that difficult situation, right? That not good, not bad, just, it's different. It's an interesting situation, but sometimes just holding that hot cup of coffee, it's not that I need another cup of coffee. It's that the warmth is sending a message to my brain to go ahead and relax. It's a safe spot, even though it's a difficult situation.
Yep. Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so good, Shawnah. Yay. Okay. So do you have any last words of wisdom or advice or guidance or support that you'd like to share with our listeners around this topic? Because, I mean, we kind of covered a lot, but it's really been centered more on just recognizing that life is full of all different kinds of emotions, and recognizing that what you grew up with, that programming can be undone, can be unraveled if you allow yourself to recognize that there are tools, and sometimes those tools seem weird at first, but allowing yourself to really recognize that tools don't have to be hard. They don't have to be complicated. They can be as simple as just going outside and taking a deep breath. This is one of the pieces that I know that I've been sharing with my audience about is decluttering. I mean, I've been talking about that for years, but decluttering the mental space is just as important as decluttering our physical space. And I think hopefully the people listening to today's podcast episode will understand that they can start to declutter that mental stuff by just using some of these tools that you've mentioned here. And then also digging deeper on the internet and just saying, how can I de-stress, or how can I do this or that, like whatever's plaguing you. But in any case, share with us your last words of wisdom for those who are listening and those who are long haulers and are still here. I love this. So good. Anything you'd like to share?
Yes, I would have to say that each experience you go through, and all those different emotions is just be okay. There's times that it's professional support you need. There's time that it's self-care support you need. Don't ever be ashamed or feel like something's wrong because you have an emotion or you have feelings, or maybe it's time you need to cry, be okay with that. Right. So, there's so many tools out there, and there's so many alternative therapies, as you said about, how you grew up, we grew up in you go sit on the couch and you talk to the psychiatrist, right? And just realizing if you've never went and spoke to somebody because you have some things going on, with the mentally decluttering, and your stress, realize that there's more to that. If you do not want to do that and you really aren't ready to start with that, maybe it's going to the gym and moving your body. Maybe it's getting in a pool and swimming, and maybe it's cleaning out your closet. Yes. Maybe you have, and I'm not disregarding the people that have it, but maybe it's the fact that you have your old yearbooks or your Letterman's coat, or you have your class ring sitting in that closet, and you don't have the best experiences from high school. So you don't want those. Don't feel like you have to hold on to that, because when you get rid of stuff, that goes with like the comforter that you had with your first husband. That you're just like, okay, you know what? I can't sleep under that bed anymore, under that blanket anymore. It's okay to get rid of it and buy a new one. Gift it to somebody else. Because we don't think about that. People will hold on to stuff and all the energy and emotion that goes around the stuff. So be okay with getting rid of the dress. I will tell you, you know what? It wasn't the best experience when I had to go to a wake and a funeral for somebody that took their life by suicide. It wasn't fun. I remember calling somebody and going, oh my gosh, what do I wear? It was a lady I was doing a Bible study with. I call her my grandma, and I was like, what do I do? And she's like, go to Herberger's. It still existed. Go to Herberger's, buy something off the clearance rack, get gray. Nobody will judge you if you wear gray. I'm like, okay, that wasn't what I was thinking, but all right. And I literally heard comments like, she knew how to dress. She's in gray. She's not a grieving widow. And she's not happy, so she's in gray. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. But you know what? I then bagged those clothes up and I donated them. Yeah. Because I didn't want them sitting there. God, and it was for nothing about the emotion behind that day was tough. Yeah. And I didn't want it there. So think of that. Do you have something sitting in your house that's reminded you of a situation? Be okay to get rid of it. Decluttering your pictures, your stuff. Like you said, I'm getting on a decluttering thing for you. Those of you that haven't gotten on a decluttering click day with Flora, you need to do it, because decluttering is amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, and I got rid of my yearbooks years and years ago. And there's only been one time where I regretted doing it because I wanted to show my kids, but I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm okay. I kept my Marine Corps boot camp one, but I didn't keep my high school ones.
Right. And you know what? I just figured out my son has I think he has his Marine ones. I don't know if he has any from high school, but he has his Marine stuff. And I'm like, yeah. So just think of that. What's laying in your house? What's there?
Yeah. Yep.
Because that can affect you and your energy too.
Oh, because you see it every day.
Right.
Every day.
Right.
And if something has those negative, like low, dense, sticky vibes, no, it literally affects you and impacts you every time you see it or every time you pass by it. And that wreaks havoc on your mental health.
Oh, yes, it does. I got rid of a really nice bedroom set that I absolutely loved, but I'm like, I just can't do it anymore. I got to. I had it since 2000, and I was like, nope. It's just. I think that's what's. I'm having such a hard time at night sleeping.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be as little as changing your blanket. I get it.
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be huge, but think of it. Maybe you can have somebody come in and clear your house, or open up the windows and let fresh air in and clear all the energy out. That's great.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Or a good deep cleaning. That does wonders as well.
A deep cleaning. Yes. And you know what, you guys, I mean, I'll tell you my little secret. If I know people say, before people come into your house, bake, but man, if you can find something with some citrus or some lemon or some lime, the zest of life. Oh my gosh, it's amazing to smell that throughout your house.
Yes, I agree.
And clean with it, open the windows, and don't be afraid to open your windows in the winter and let the fresh air in. I mean, for you don't get that, but anymore, but you understand it from years ago. But be okay with that and take the vacation, take the day trip.
Yeah. Go. Yeah, exactly. Get outside of your normal environment.
Yeah. Because sometimes that's just as little as that, as little as that.
Yep.
It's sitting by the water. You don't necessarily have to get in it. Just sit by it.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I want to continue this conversation, but we got to go. So,
all right.
We will definitely do another episode with you, because we literally could talk for days about all the things, which we always like every single time we have a conversation, you guys, like, we're always like, we should be recording this. This is such good stuff. I love it. Well, Shawnah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and sharing all of your wisdom with us and all of your stories. And I'm going to post a link in the show notes if somebody wants to connect with you, if they're local to the Stillwater, Minnesota area. And they'd like to get the best massage ever. I can attest to this multiple times over. Go ahead and book Shawnah because she's freaking amazing. And oh my gosh. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for connecting with us today. And we will for sure have you on again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I have enjoyed.
Yay. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode. If you've been loving these episodes, it would mean the world to me if you would rate this podcast on iTunes. A 5-star rating is what I always aim for. All links mentioned are in today's show notes.